Have you ever been drunk or high and came up with this truly amazing idea but then became sober and realized it wasn't as amazing as you thought it was? If so, what was the idea? Turn signals on grocery carts and horns and knives. I once had the idea to have two left turn signals on a car, one for a regular left turn and a different one to indicate you were going to do a U-turn. I have no idea why this made so much sense at the time, but for the rest of that night I legit thought I was a genius. Given how little people use it on their cars, I imagine a grocery cart is too much to ask, lol. I made a soup sandwich while really high before. The soup obviously just destroyed the bread's integrity and just fell out the sandwich. That was the first time in my life I realized just how dumb I am. Don't be so hard on yourself. I mean, bread bowls exist. Basically the same thing. You would enjoy French onion soup. It's both a soup and a cheese sandwich. I got really high once and went to record my thoughts in my voice recording app like I usually do. It wasn't until I went to save and title it did I realize that I had actually called a local pizza joint after hours and left them a voicemail. Hey boss. Some guy left a weird voicemail. Yeah, I know. Call him back and let him know has got the job. Holy deuce, this reminds me when I was a barista and these two teenagers were obviously super stoned and asked for foam milk. I start handing it to one of them, but instead of grabbing it, he takes one long sip, as him holding it awkwardly across the counter. His friend started laughing and he looked super sheepish. Sorry brewer with a crazy milk mustache. You bet I never forgot them, lol. This is the first one that made me laugh out loud. Nice. Lol. Oh, to be the opening pizza workers that next day. Once, while thoroughly drunk, I ordered a pizza and it arrived overcooked. Crust was like dried asphalt and the toppings blackened and singed. So I pitched the idea to my other drunk buddies that pizza places should let their customers control the pizza ovens through the internet so we can decide when it's done, which then lead to an entire design your own pizza machine / website combo where one could control exactly how much of each ingredient to add using robotic arms and you could watch it cook live through an oven cam. Seemed brilliant at the time. They have these in places. It looks like a huge vending machine. When I GRT home I'll see if I can find a link. Edit. Link. So like making your own pizza? He chose and selected. He sorted and picked with mouth that was watering. Lips that were licked. He looked as it cooked as he lay on his bed. He watched it. He burned it. Oh muck it. He said. Okay, hear me out. Go to your local bar and get plastered. Then go to Lens Crafters and get your eyes checked. They will fix your double and blurry vision and give you a pair of glasses. So when you get drunk again you can put on your, wait for it, drunk goggles. Do you have a Kickstarter? Howard Marks Link did something similar to aid in changing his appearance when on the run from the authorities. He got stoned out of his mind, went to an optician, and got a prescription for lenses that corrected his vision when he was very high. Magnificent. Why are we not funding this? I was on acid and had a revelation that I had to make the next Google. I have no idea what it means to be the next Google, but regardless it felt like the best idea in the world. The feeling of checking my notes app the next day for the grand idea I had and seeing be the next Google was hilarious. What you really need is some kind of hot tub time machine. Beer rocks. When drinking at an outdoor place, using plastic cups, you put fancy rocks in your beer so the cups don't blow over. Genius. Mine was similar. The theory was, the top half of the cup of beer tastes better than the bottom half, so we make cups that have the bottom half already full of something else. We invented smaller cups. I don't think we should be giving drunk people projectiles, so throw a whiskey stone into the bottom of the glass. These would get stolen so hard. When a football match goes into extra time, they should add a second ball. If it gets to halftime without anyone scoring, they add a third ball. I'm actually not sure this idea is a bad one. Bobby, you can't solve every problem using pinball logic. That would definitely make an interesting game. Multi-ball. Multi-ball. I thought of something that I thought was the funniest deuce. A video or comic where one guy takes a pepper packet, opens it, and pours it into his eyes. When his friend starts freaking out, he goes haha. tricked you. It's actually salt. But that's pretty funny actually. I've had a dream where I actually woke myself up laughing. It was a dream where Sonic the Hedgehog was running, but he kept slipping and going whoa. I thought it was the funniest thing ever until I woke up. I'm in tears. Well done. Once while high my friends came up with an online call center for people who have anxiety while high to call. It was named TripAdvisor. These exist and do good around the globe. /r/tripsit.me etc. My father in the early 1980s got very drunk one night and came up with the idea of a 1-800 call center that would be staffed by operators dedicated to telling the callers what stores had sales that day and which stores were accepting coupons. When I reminded him of his idea, when he sobered up he got the most hilarious look on his face. But how would you make money doing that? Reminds me of the guy in 30 Rock who kept coming up with business names that already exist. I thought it would be practical if you would have a tag with your address written on it attached to your keys, so if you ever lost them, they can be sent back. Seemed brilliant to me. Thieves might enjoy this idea as well. My bank does something cool that solves that problem. A keychain with a dog tag that has a specific code that the bank registers to your address. If you lose your keys, anyone who sees them can throw them in a mailbox and they'll be sent back to you. I was thinking that kids these days need more time on the road to be better drivers, so maybe Uber should partner with driving education groups and like subsidize them or pay the kids in college bonds or whatever. Yeah, maybe hiring a bunch of terrible drivers for your taxi services isn't such a great idea. Lol, this is great. Hi, my name's Kyle. I'm 14. This is my mom. So where ya headed today? Hiring a bunch of terrible drivers for your taxi services already feels this way. King Kong but with a giraffe. King Long. Ed, watch it. They said ideas that aren't still great when you sober up though. Usually I make big plans that cost a lot of money and then promise sober people that we will do them, so they start to look forward to the plans. I sober up and regret all of my decisions yet still have to follow through. Most recent was that I promised my sister that I'd bring my daughter to visit her in Florida. 2000 later. I have a sunburn. Always do sober what you said you'd do drunk. That will teach you to keep your mouth shut. Ernest Hemingway. Most recent was that I promised my sister that I'd bring my daughter to visit her in Florida. 2000 later. I have a sunburn. Mad respect for following thought. I promised my sister that I'd bring my daughter to visit her in Florida. It would be funnier if your daughter would have been 35 years old. Yep. Pre-melted cheese edit. Okay, I feel the need to clarify as people are saying nacho cheese or Velveeta or cheese whiz. I was so baked. My idea was pre-melted cheese. Like a boil in the bag rice. But for cheese. Like a block of cheddar cheese in a sandwich bag and boiled till molten. And then it stayed molten. Like didn't solidify and I could just pour it on stuff. Like I was so high. I literally forgot all the aforementioned products existed and I thought I was going to be a mucking millionaire. Then started to talk with my friends about where I should live, be it LA or New York, in a penthouse suite, and have a butler and maids and deuce. Then I came to after passing out at some point. And I remember the entire conversation and think holy mucking god. I'm a mucking moron, hear me out. We melt the cheese then freeze it. Then anytime you want melted cheese you just pop it in the microwave for a couple of minutes. Well, on paper, that's kinda what cheese whiz is, and, in French at least, Kraft Singles packages indicates that it's a produit de fromage fondue which translates to melted cheese product. So, yeah, not a bad idea at all it seems. One time when I was tripping I wrote down this whole page of numbers and swore it was the answer. The answer to what I don't know lol. I just kept saying it's all about the digits. The numbers Mason. What do they mean? One of my philosophy professors told a joke about a philosopher having a dream in which he met Socrates, but quickly saw the proper rebuttal to his views, which Socrates conceded. Then he met Aristotle, and Descartes, and Kant, and Nietzsche, and Mill, and with each of them presented his contrary position successfully. He knew he was dreaming, but he thought I have to wake up enough to write this down. He managed to become conscious enough that he quickly scrawled the words down on some paper, then fell asleep again. The next morning he woke up, remembered what had happened, and excitedly grabbed the note. It read, "Yeah, that's what you say. Oh god. I did something similar. I was having a dream where I felt like the secrets of the universe were being revealed to me, and I had gained some irreplaceable piece of wisdom that would change my life forever. I woke up. In my half asleep blurry sleepiness grabbed my phone and opened my notes app to write down this critical knowledge. In the morning I vaguely remembered the dream, convinced that there on my notes app would be the key to life and the universe. All it said was, the age of the worm shop is infinite. Has a master rhetorician, has loquacious with a style, has an eloquence magician, and he does it with a smile. Has a lecturer, a speaker, an orator of debate, has an altercation seeker, and he doesn't want to wait. And it's when you think you're winning that he takes it nice and slow and he tells you while has grinning. Yeah, that's just what you say, bro. And a proponent of Eastern philosophy would agree with that. I had something similar to this. I was in high school, chronically sleep deprived with a full honors/Apple Noop and 2 varsity practices a day. One night I had fallen asleep in my books. I'd finally finished my homework and needed to start my review for a US history quiz the next day. I woke up in a confused panic. I needed to get this review in before grabbing what sleep I could. Things weren't going according to plan, and in my panic I opened my history notes to start reading. The first thing I read in the notebook was according to Jesus the meaning of life is, and thought to myself this isn't the testable material. Skip this and flip forward until I got to whatever the test was on. A few minutes later I realized what I had done and looked back through my notes to find the meaning of life. Nope. Not there. Total hallucination. But this always struck me as a great metaphor for losing sight of what really matters in life. I'm not religious at all, but it was a Catholic school. I had this idea that the Taken films should each focus on a different set of skills. Like Liam Neeson could be an amazing chef in Taken 2, and perhaps a postman in Taken 3. Honestly, this sounds like a much better version of what we got, but I still want it to involve saving a kidnapped person somehow. I have a running note on my phone with my ideas I have while intoxicated. I think my best one is what if there was a Queer Eye spin-off called Third Eye, where hippies and conspiracy theorists try to awaken people who are already happy with their lives. Most of them are just done with such highlights as future math will be cool and there's a lot of cute animal behavior. I love it. Would 100% watch. Would this be like What Not to Wear, and their friends and family secretly film them and enter them in the show, and then Third Eye comes and gives them a forcible conspiracy makeover? Everyone ends up in cult wherein their house is redecorated with tinfoil wallpaper. Third Eye is actually called the Joe Rogan Experience. I thought I invented breakfast tacos. When I shared my invention with my friends they asked me if I intended the wheel too. Hol up. You invented the wheel. My friend and I are musicians. And I used to be the stoner type. He still is. We'd write a song or a melody that would sound killer. And we'd be pumped about our new song. And then realize it's just a different version of another song by a famous artist. Happened every time. I ran upstairs and yelled at my husband, why don't they make mittens for feet? And he said, you mean socks? And I said, oh yeah. Socks. This makes me think of the German word for gloves. Handschuh, which literally translates to hand shoes. You're basically reverse engineering the German language. Not me but Paul McCartney. The first time he got high he apparently discovered the meaning of life and immediately went to write it down. When he woke up the next morning he looked at the paper and it said there are 7 levels. A friend of mine did the same thing on acid. Hers said artsy fartsy with arrows pointing in every direction. My creative writing tutor had a comedian friend who kept dreaming about telling the world's funniest joke. He'd get a standing ovation every time and he toured the world on this one joke. But when he woke up he could never remember it. One night he kept a notepad next to his bed. Woke from the dream and scribbled down the joke. Got up the next morning. Looked at the page and it said, I'm a hammer. The worm shop's 7 eternal flaws. As teenagers, my friend and I used to get really stoned and go sit in this particular diner for hours and drink coffee until we sobered up. One time 2 cops in uniform came in and sat down a few tables away and ordered some food. At first we were kind of paranoid. but they didn't seem to be paying us any attention. My friend was the type of guy who liked to do wacky doos just to be funny, especially on a dare. He was also a big proponent of marijuana legalization. Like, he talked about it all the time. I told him I thought it would be hilarious to go up and ask the cops their thoughts on marijuana legalization. We were both still pretty baked, and he thought it was a funny idea too, so on a whim he decided to do it. He took off his jacket and set it on the bench next to him, and walked calmly over to their table and began talking with them. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the conversation appeared to be polite and lasted a minute or two. He came back to the table with a big stoned grin on his face. Oh man, those cops seem okay to me. They both said they think weed should be legal and it's a waste of their time to go after pot smokers. A little while later the cops finished their food and left. One of them even smiled and nodded to my friend on the way out. We watched them get into their patrol car and drive out of the parking lot. We stayed for about another half hour and then left to catch the bus home. We got to the bus stop, and just as we both lit up a cigarette, a cop car pulled up with the same two cops inside. They had been sitting in the parking lot next door with their lights off waiting for us to come out of the diner. We obviously weren't old enough to be smoking cigarettes, and a check of our IDs confirmed that. They searched both of us and found a 5-sack of weed and a pipe in my friend's jacket. We both got tickets for underage smoking. He got cited for the pipe and marijuana, was given a court date, and taken home to his parents in the back of a police car. The whole story seemed so heartwarming and wholesome till you got caught. Hope it turned out alright in the end. They both said they think weed should be legal and it's a waste of their time to go after pot smokers. Then, they had been sitting in the parking lot next door with their lights off waiting for us to come out of the diner. What a waste indeed. Best part is that those cops probably still tell that story too. Wait, those cops sucked the mayo. They ticketed you for everything they could. Not cool at all. Sugar bags. Like tea bags but for sugar. Tea into sugars. 1 tea bag. 2 sugar bags. As we were stoned as truck, my cousin holding up an empty tea bag filled with sugar and me trying to carefully tie it back up with a piece of cotton. My cousin disappointingly says sugar cubes. Little paper sugar pockets are standard in cafes where I live. My friend is a lawyer, and when he was in law school did a summer internship to Ghana studying international law. We were like 2 blunts deep, and he came up with the brilliant idea to make chairs in Ghana, because everyone he saw there was just sitting on the ground. He was convinced we could have made a fortune selling chairs. In my first year of engineering in uni, one of the design projects was to come up with a chair made of cardboard. The idea was to make a chair supportive and comfortable enough, whilst also being easy to assemble, by cutting out shapes on a large piece of cardboard so as to keep the shipping costs low. The winning design was supposed to be implemented, and if my memory serves correctly, the initial pilot program was going to be for a small community in Ghana. When I did shrooms, I came up with the absolutely genius idea that NASA should employ young children and send them to space for missions because they have more natural curiosity and aren't jaded yet by adulthood, and they might notice things that a more experienced astronaut would miss because they'll look from a different perspective. I was convinced I needed to email NASA right away and tell them about my brilliant epiphany. This would make a beautiful kids movie or picture book. They also have less weight, saving expensive fuel. Ender's Game. A thing you put on the laptop charger thing that gets hot, which keeps your cheese dip hot. Ick, now what? Now that I use a laptop and know how hot the battery can get, you just might be onto something. Myself and 2 friends were extremely high and extremely hungry. We put all our money together and said that we would buy the most amount of food for the amount of money we had gathered. We had a total of 16. So our thought process was we could order 16 portions of chips french fries for you Americans. We had to call the takeaway 3 times before they would believe that it wasn't a prank. We convinced them we were throwing a party. The takeaway finally delivered it, and myself and my other friend were too high to go to the door, so we made friend 3 go by himself. All of the lights were off and there was no music playing, so the delivery driver delivered 16 portions of chips to one man alone. From his perspective, needless to say, 16 portions of chips is too much food between 3 people. Ordered 260x 40cm pizzas high as a kite all for myself. Got about 3/4 through the first, until I gave up. Stomach aches for 2 days and a sense of self-loathing to this day, because I finished both of them within the next day. Where you jet in a bag of chips for a quid, mate. This must have been a few years ago, lol. Imagine Discord online voice chat. My idea was that you could create subrooms within the current channel. My thought process was, I want to have a conversation with one person, but still want to kinda hear what my other friends are conversing about with other people in the channel, but I don't want their conversation to interrupt my conversation and vice versa. So my thinking was that you join like a sub-channel where everyone in that sub-channel is at 100% volume and everyone else in the parent channel is at like 30% volume. So you could all be in the same parent channel, but not really be a hindrance to one another, but you could still sorta hear them if you wanted to. It seems like a good idea if you're high, but then you realize it's just kinda pointless, lol. I thought I was onto a massive breakthrough. Edit. Well, this went mental. The people have spoken. Discord. Make it happen. Thanks everyone. I mean, you're just going for the vibe at a party. The old vibes had that mumble. Ventrello. You could listen in on another room, while you and whomever were in a separate room. You could hear them, but they couldn't hear you. I had this idea for a movie in a similar vein of Cabin in the Woods, where these people move into a haunted house. Except the plot is from the antagonist's perspective, where the ghosts haunting the house treat it like a job, and have interviews in front of a camera. Reality show style. Venting about how tedious the little aspects of the job are. The premise was this ghost had reluctantly picked up and followed this family to this new house in order to keep haunting them, and inadvertently stepped on another ghost's jurisdiction. And bicker about who haunts who. Antics ensue. I realize now that this is more or less just what we do in the shadows. Damn you, Taker. Yours sounds equally as amusing and fully worthy of its own film. There are lots of films out there with basically the same premise,